Away from the court now, it was the 25th year anniversary of unbroken democratic rule in Nigeria yesterday. By the way, it was also the 25th anniversary of President Tinubu's inauguration as governor of Lagos in 1999. And it clocked a year in office yesterday as president of the Federal Republic. His visit to the National Assembly was unprecedented as against the customary presentation of annual budgets we're used to. We saw him also sign into law the old national anthem used from independence in 1960 up until 1978. Well, that has since received reactions from Nigerians. On the program today, we'll take a look at the achievements of Mr. President in the last 1 year. I'm joined by a member representing Eden North and South in Osun State, Bamdele Salam. Also joining me is a Labour Party chieftain, Callisto Okafor, who joins live from Abuja. Mr. Okafor, let's begin with you. What do you make of Mr. President's unprecedented address to the joint session of the National Assembly yesterday on the occasion of Nigeria's 25th year anniversary of unbroken democracy?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Go ahead, please. I can hear you. We have to work on that connection with Mr. Okafor, who represents a voice from opposition. There are lots of talk about how much of opposition this administration has actually gotten in the past year. Recall that we've talked about how it does seem that that line is faded between outright opposition and those who belong to Mr. President's political party. We've had the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum publicly saying that they will be supporting Mr. President in the coming election. I recall that we also had a conversation with the publicity secretary of the PDP in Benue State, also saying that they might be tolling that path if nothing significantly changes within the party. There are also individual voices who were proud to this time very critical of Mr. President, especially before the 2023 general election, who also seem to have crossed those lines. How much of efficient opposition is this administration getting and has gotten in the past years? Also part of the conversation that we are going to have. By the way, Mr. President is saying that he's going to submit this 2024 supplementary budget very soon to the National Assembly. He's also talked about the very important role that the legislature has played in Nigeria's celebration of 25 years of unbroken democratic rule. The big question, however, is have we all enjoyed the privilege of this democracy? The Honorable Member of the House of Assembly, Honorable Bamdele Salam, represents the people of Eden North, South in the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Salam. Talk to us about what it was like receiving Mr. President yesterday. Unprecedented, perhaps the first time we're going to hear that kind of address without him presenting the national budget.
Well, thank you very much. It was symbolic that the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, came to the National Assembly yesterday on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of unbroken civil rule in Nigeria. Having the President in attendance at the joint session of the National Assembly signifies a form of a collaboration between the executive and legislative arm of government in celebrating this very important landmark in the history of our country. Even though some of us would have expected that the occasion will be used for a State of the Nation address, which will have made the visit more grand, will have made it more impacting. But the fact that he even came and spoke in those few minutes before the National Assembly, as well as joined the National Assembly for the official flag off of the return of, the national anthem, the old national anthem, the Nigeria We Hail the national anthem, was quite symbolic. And then the few minutes of speech that the president gave touched on very important element of our democratic engagement, especially talking about the need for us to deepen the values of conversation, to widen the base of consultation between amongst all the tiers of government, as well as his plan to bring some proposals
Indeed.
in terms of budgetary proposals to the National Assembly in the coming weeks. So it's very symbolic that on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of return of democratic rule, unbroken civil rule, we had the first citizen of the country coming to join the joint session of the National Assembly.
Indeed.
And those few words of his charge were actually something memorable.
I hear you clearly, Honorable. Recall that it wasn't clear even prior to yesterday whether or not Mr. President was going to come and if he's going to give that State of the Nation address that you talked about. But do you consider it a plus or otherwise that perhaps for the first time we have a Mr. President who is a former lawmaker himself alongside the Vice President, and they now have a Chief of Staff who also used to be Speaker of the House of Representatives? How much impact is that having on the role of the National Assembly to do its job independent of the executive? Do you think this is too much romance between the two arms of government?
Oh, absolutely no, because democracy is about engagement. Democracy is about interaction. Democracy is about dialogue. And one thing that cannot be too much in any democracy is engagement. In fact, the more engagement you have, the more democratic the process is. The two arms of government are not meant to work apart from each other. We are meant to work for Nigeria and for Nigerians. And if you're going to work for a common purpose, a common good, there must be constant meeting ground. So for those who may think that there is too much of romance between executive and legislature, maybe they do not actually understand the principle of the collaborations that are embedded in democratic governance. Yes, we have separation of powers as clearly spelled out by specific provisions of the Constitution. But then in the implementation or exercise of such powers and responsibilities, there must of necessity be the need for collaboration, for engagement, for interaction, and that is part of what happened yesterday. And don't also forget that there are quite a whole lot of feedback or reporting that the legislative arm of government requires from the executive. We make the laws, we pass the budget, we also do the oversight. And this will need us to have constant feedback from the executive on how well the laws we pass have been implemented.
Indeed.
How well the budgets we pass have also been implemented. And also we, as the representative of the people, serve as the heirs of the common man in Nigeria. And the only way the feedback we get from our constituencies can make any meaning in budget or in policy formulation and implementation is how well we are able to relate them to the executive arm of government, which is charged with the execution of those laws and programs and policies.
I hear you, Honorable. I hear you, Honorable. But there are some who have said there's a thin line between what you call collaboration as a result of perhaps the lawmaking experience that many people in the executive have, and the National Assembly being a rubber stamp to this administration. And perhaps we'll talk about that shortly. But please just hang in there. Let me bring into this conversation a chieftain of the Labour Party, Callistus Okafor. Mr. Okafor, quickly, let me get your reaction as to how vibrant you think the opposition party has been in the past 1 year. Do you think this administration has gotten quality criticism in the way of political opposition in the past year? It does seem like we're having challenges connecting with Mr. Okafor. But if you're speaking, can you kindly unmute your mic?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Very clearly. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for having me. Sorry for the network. I want to say that this is the first time a real businessman, a core businessman, is becoming the president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Where I personally, as a businessman, I expect things to go differently. I want him to be a businessman. I want him to bring that his business skills into leadership. Well, that is exactly what we're seeing now. Let me tell you, no matter how good you are, no matter what you do, people must criticize you. Mr. President, as I've seen him, is who believe he can be criticized. And when you see a good leader, when you see a man who believes in to lead his people very well, he also wants to be criticized, because why he's being criticized, he will do better. He will do very well. So people are criticizing him, right? That's correct. But for me, I believe in constructive criticisms. When someone do good, please give him applause. But if somebody good do right, get it wrong, then criticize him, he will take corrections from that. So I have seen a leadership quality in him. In as much as all the name callings, in as much as all the criticisms, he still stay focused. He still stand to do that which he has promised Nigerians in his campaign.
All right.
In campaign promises.
Absolutely. Honorable Salam, quickly, let's talk about the new national anthem, because we saw that play out yesterday on the floor of the joint session. If the information online is right, you're probably 9 years old when Nigerians started singing that particular anthem. Many of you did not even know the lyrics. And I'm sure you're also following very strongly the mixed reactions greeting this development. Why did you change it? That's the question on the mind of people. Why did it happen so fast? What were you aiming to achieve? I've heard some say it's just sentimental on the part of those of you who are well above 50 years old. How do you react to this?
Well, thank you very much. Let me put it on record first to say that I personally, I do not support a reversal of the national anthem to the Nigerian bill. I wasn't in support of that bill, but like I said in some interviews earlier on, democracy is about the majority having its way and the minority having their say. The majority members of the National Assembly are of the view that the old national anthem perhaps evokes greater sense of patriotism, unity, and what have you. But my own point of divergence from the thought of the majority is, one, the fact that the national anthem, the Arise, O Compatriot national anthem, which has become the old now, appears to me to be sufficient as an instrument of building a nation that respects diversity, that also respects the sacrifices of our heroes past. And again, don't forget that that national anthem was a product of Nigeria's creativity, a product of our ingenuity, having been composed by Nigerians. Now, the one we reverted to now was one of the vestiges, relics of our colonialism. It was composed by our colonial masters and handed over to us, on independence. So I personally do not support that, but it has already become a law of Nigeria. And as a Democrat, I align myself with what the majority have done. The president has signed it into law, and also trying to, go back to relearn, that thing that we're singing. And the gentleman you have on the other side, Mr. Okafor, I think if I'm getting my memory right, happens to be my schoolmate in Sokoto.
Wow.
We were, if it's the same person, I know that name was Callistus Okafor. I don't know whether it is him. And I remember that in our growing up days, we used to sing that Nigeria, we hail thee. We still need to relearn now so that we'll be in tune. But if you ask me personally, I strongly believe that the Arise, O Compatriot national anthem was sufficient for us. If for any reason we needed to change it, we could have just called for maybe people who can creatively come and do a blend of what we have and bring out a new national anthem. But like I've said, This is democracy, and it has passed all the necessary tests of democracy in the parliament.
All right.
It has been approved by parliament, and the president has accepted it. It has become law. So anytime we have a call to sing national anthem, we sing it.
All right.
Like I said, we are learning and relearning what we used to sing, in our growing up days. But those are my.
It is now law, and you have no choice than to learn the words, because you'll be singing it for quite a long time.
Absolutely.
Until if or whether if anything happens subsequently. Mr. Okafor, is that you from Kaduna? Yes. And what do you make of this new national anthem?
For me,
Sokoto.
Honestly speaking, for now, I'm not the one from Sokoto. It may be somebody that resembles me, and the same name with me, not me.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, but for this national anthem, my brother, actually, for me too, I don't like it. I speak against it. I said this is not actually what we need now. No, that's not what we need now. What we need now is Mr. President to focus on the things that Nigerians are yearning for, not national anthem. National anthem is the least of our problem. But let me say it this way: like they say, majority carries the vote. If Nigerians, the National Assembly, who are the lawmakers, say, support Mr. President, this is what he wants to do, and they say it's right. Who am I to say no? But that's one thing I like about this president, the Senator Ahmed Tinubu. You can see gradually, if you recall, he said in his campaign promises that's going to change this national anthem. And you can see he has done that. So I believe with this, that he's also do and keep every promises he made to Nigerians during his campaign. So if Nigerians say, the majority say yes, who am I to say no? For me, it's not the best thing or the important thing to do now.
Honorable Salam, do you think we're going to see this National Assembly also imbibe the kind of speed that they introduce into this bill, into other bills that Nigerians consider very important?
Well, yes. Again, when you talk about speed, there is a process that passage of bills take. This bill took that passage and was faster, probably because unlike some other bills that need a whole lot of engagement, a whole lot of consultation, this one wasn't really a very major, major issue.
And you have also raised another quite important point, Honorable. Just allow me to jump in, because that's also a concern that some are saying they were not even carried along. How come we did not have some form of public engagement like you usually have for other bills on this one?
No, again, like I said, well, it passed through all those processes. I remember very well that after the first and the second reading, of course, there was a form of a public hearing where stakeholders came. And if you remember very well, there were even key players of the federal government. I remember very well the Minister of Information and a few others came and were asking, for the National Assembly to exercise some patience and so on and so forth. But the question you asked initially is whether those other bills that will impact on the life of Nigerians will enjoy the same speed that this enjoys. And I'm answering that question in the affirmative, that when there are issues that touch on the well-being of Nigerians, on the prosperity of Nigeria, on the security of life and property, this National Assembly will give it, and has been giving it, the kind of consideration it deserves in a manner that will not make us stay long on the same. A lot of bills have been passed, in the 10th Assembly that also didn't take this long, to pass because of the importance that the National Assembly attaches, to such bills. And for some other issues, however, you need a whole lot of consultation and process. For example, some of the issues that Nigerians are asking us to address now have to do with the amendment of the Constitution. Now, passage of a bill into an act takes a different process from a constitutional amendment. And constitutional amendment will require us to do the first reading, second reading, And then those bills will go after, we have considered them, we go to all the 36 states of the houses of assembly for consideration and concurrence to any of the sections that we have agreed, to alter the, which may necessarily take a longer period. And those are where the most fundamental issues of federalism, fiscal responsibility and so on,
I hear you clearly, Honorable,
will come into play. And necessarily, those engagements take a longer time. But I agree with you that whatever we need to do that will affect Nigerians, we have to do them expeditiously.
Indeed.
In line with what we did, considering the changing of the national anthem.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time. Mr. Okafor, if you can, in a minute, talk to us about the kind of expectation from the opposition 1 year after the inauguration of this administration. What do you think they must be doing differently?
You can see, Mr. President.
Well, I think the network just robbed Mr. Okafor of a final comment on this topic. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I've been speaking with member representing Eden North and South in Osun. He's actually a member of the House with the People's Democratic Party and also Labour Party chieftain Callisto Okafor. Mr. Okafor, we'll continue this conversation some other time. Perhaps you join us in the studio subsequently. Gentlemen, thank you for talking to us on the program this evening.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
That's our show today. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.